is the Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Cintia of COREangels. COREangels is a global brand of hands-on angels investing in early-stage startups through local portfolio funds. Their funds invest in a portfolio selected by the angels from a pool of startups curated by the leaders. Cintia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Hall. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great. So where are you calling from today?
I am in Lisbon. I am based here in Lisbon, Portugal.
Great. So tell us more about your background before joining COREangels. What did you do before this?
Sure. Yes. I started as a developer. So I studied computer science and I worked for software companies. It was a long way ago. And then after a period in the corporate world, like consulting firms, big companies, like climbing the corporate ladder, I decided to leave this world and become a startup founder. And this made a huge difference in my career and in my personal life, of course. After this, I started mentoring startups, and then I came to angel investing. So in a very briefly way, this is how the pathway of my career went.
So what excites you right now?
Well, today I just fell in love with this activity of angel investing. So after I started to be a founder, I went through all the ups and downs of startup world, like thinking of getting funded or not, pitching, discussing with investors, finding the customers, etc. And I realized that startups, they have a big problem with lack of capital in the very beginning. So early stage startups, all the funding news that we know, that we read in the media, is they are much more in the later stage. So when I started seeing this, besides being a mentor to early stage startups, I was also wishing to become an investor. And when I started investing as an angel, then I found it was my aha moment, like, well, this is something that I could do forever and then I could do without even being paid. And the crazy thing about angel investing is that in the end, you are paying, right? So you're paying and you're working, you're investing in a company. So you're partnering with the founders. You're paying for the possibility of working with them. And then I just love this, especially in the model that I met, like investing together with other angels. And I see more and more people discovering this activity. So people that could become angel investors, but they are not because they have never heard about it. So I'm really passionate about talking to these wannabe angels and also to the ones who have already been experiencing this activity but want to take a next step and create their own funds. So today I'm really involved with angel investors that want to launch their own funds focused in specific investment theses. This is what's moving me now.
So great. So tell us about your group. For example, what does your group invest in?
Okay. Our network, we have 11 angel funds. We call them funds. It's just to highlight that it's a portfolio building. So the angels, it's not a regular model of an angel syndicate where you go, you watch a pitch, and then you select the startups that you want to invest and build a portfolio. But they build portfolios together. So today, COREangels, we are 11 angel funds. So we have 11 portfolios in 8 different countries. And each portfolio has a specific investment thesis. So some of them are based on geographies. So we have like COREangels Barcelona or COREangels Lisbon. They are investing in startups around the cities. So they are industry agnostic. They are not investing in a specific sector. In other groups, in other funds, they are vertical funds, which means that they are focused in a specific industry like edutech or climate or big data and AI. So these angels, they are building a portfolio around this specific thesis. So this is how we invest in COREangels.
And so what exactly is your investment thesis for the group?
So usually we invest in pre-seed and seed stages of startups. For the geographic funds, it's not necessarily that they don't need to meet a specific industry. It's just being pre-seed and seed. The leaders are the ones bringing the investment cases that are fitting the thesis, and the angels are the ones making the decision. So In the end, it's kind of a mix between the angel experience and a VC fund structure, but the ones making the decision or where to invest are the angels, are the owners of the money.
And do you look for early exits?
Well, I like to say that early exits are better than no exits, right? So in some cases, right,
That's
I
a good
think
saying. I
one of
think
the
most
things
people
that
would
we
agree with
did,
you on that.
yeah, because sometimes you miss an opportunity, right? Sometimes it's an early exit, and the investors, they are always thinking like, well, but is it the best moment? Shouldn't we wait a little longer? We are always facing these questions. But the truth is that, especially when we are investing in a portfolio, so we are building a portfolio of startups together, it's important to have some early exits because this will give movement to the portfolio. You will have some money coming back, and then you'll be able to continue building it. But it's really tricky to try to accelerate an opportunity of exit because you always need to be aligned to the founders, with the founders also.
So how often are you swinging for the fences on the other side of that? Sometimes people look for a single or a double, and other times they want to go for a home run. How often do you think you're going for a home run?
Yeah, well, it's not that often. So usually the statistics that we have, so the researchers that we know and the cases that we've been seeing is that like in a portfolio of 10 startups, you would have like a one home run or two most. So you will have half of them will fail, you'll have some things with very low return, and you could have one or two with very good multiples.
Very good. So where do you see your group in 5 years from now? How do you think it's going to evolve?
Well, right now we are growing. So we are working in two vectors, two drives right now in COREangels. One is that we are expanding the network. So right now we are 11 angel funds, but we are preparing 5 more to be launched. So market expansion is something that is really happening. And also we are working in building a stronger community. What do I mean by that? If we have angel funds in different geographies, it makes sense to have them supporting some startups in common. So it's becoming more natural, more common inside the network that we have startups being funded by two different funds. Because suppose that you have a startup in the US that wants to come to the European market and they can be supported by a group of angels here. So they would count not only on the money of the American angels and the European angels, but also on the backgrounds, networking, and mentoring of the angels. So we are working in these two directions: market expansion and also strengthening the community. So answering to your question, in 5 years, we are building a network. Right now, we are 300 angels. We can easily go to 1,000 angels, maybe more than that, but this would be a good number and more expanded around the globe.
Okay, great. So what are the returns?
The returns right now, we are just processing our first exits at COREangels. We were born in 2020.
Congratulations.
It's very good. It's very important to the network also to see working. It's also very important to the angel investing cycle because some of these founders will become angels also. And this is very good when we can bring founders to become angel investors in next startups. The exits, we have exits in size of 5 times or 3 times. So they are very early in the sense. But we have some startups that they're already valuing 10 times or 12 times, but it's not the time for exiting right now. So we still need to wait for them.
Right. Let's talk about the state of angel investing. How do you see the industry evolving from here?
Well, we are seeing a trend of angel investors, the ones who have been having some experience of being more specialized, like focusing on particular industries or looking for correlated angels, people that are wanting to invest in the same industry, looking for solutions that are aligned to this focus. So we are seeing groups of angels, people getting more together. This is a trend, and I think that the growth of COREangels demonstrates this also. This is one thing. The other thing is that angels, they have been becoming more like wanting to be more professional or at least more structured. So I believe that in some years ago, it was something like, well, I'm investing in this startup and let's see what happens. Okay. And now they're trying to be closer to the founders in terms of not only investing and trying to help them with their challenges in the business, but also thinking together about the future rounds, like really not planning the exits, because exit is a combination of opportunity and being prepared, but it's not under the control of angels to make them happen. But I think they've been more focused in understanding the whole chain. So how this is going to evolve, what are the next funding rounds, what could be the potential buyers of my shares, and discussing this with the founders.
And do you see angels moving to later stage deals at this point?
We have, in some of our funds, they have this strategy in the portfolio that is mixing some of the startups in the portfolio. Some of them are very early stage and they are like the single investors or they are the lead investors, but mixing this also with later stages so that they can be exposed to more mature startups and so less risky startups, but with lower shares. So that's why it's important to have a portfolio, because then you can balance the types of investment. And we are seeing that in some cases, not individual angels, but usually when they are in a syndicate or when they are in a group, in a fund, they are looking for also for this other opportunities. But it's really tricky to go only into this direction. It's important to mix with the very early stage, because this is where we can add more value.
Great. So are you guys expanding geographically? Now that we're post-pandemic and
Yes.
most of them are online, you can go further afield. Are you looking to expand that way?
Yes, absolutely. As we were born during pandemic, in fact, when the first groups of COREangels, they were born before pandemic. It was end of 2019. But the other groups, they were all through Zoom meetings and Google Meet meetings. And this is how we were created. So we were born already in a post-pandemic world. And this is also a trend that we're seeing, because many years ago, we used to say that angels, they like to invest in startups that are at most 2 hours away driving from their homes, because they could go there and check what's going on. And today, I think people are much more open to identify good deals in different countries, in different states, and not so close to them. So this has helped us expand geographically for sure.
So what do you think about crowdfunding?
Well, crowdfunding, I think it's a good mechanism for some type of startups. In some of the startups that I mentor, I recommend taking a look at and building a crowdfunding strategy, because it can be a very good complementary resource of funding. But as an investor, I don't like that much, because I like to be with the founders, like crowdfunding is more like, I would feel more like in the stock market, but with less information about the company to invest in. So I like the idea. I think it's very useful to the startups, but I'm not the kind of investor that likes investing through crowdfunding.
So for your group, what do you think is the main challenge in this space for the investor? What do they struggle with most?
Yeah, I think one thing that we see very often is that angel investing, if you wanna do it in a way that you will build value a long time, it's that you'll build your own portfolio. And I can tell you about my experience when I decided to start investing in a startup. So between deciding to invest and really starting to invest, it took me some time, because I was struggling with a few things, like where I'm going to find good deal flow. Okay, do I have to go to every event? Do I have to connect with every person, or what do I have to do to find good deals? Will I have to talk to hundreds of people to find one good startup? And this is one of the things that we solve in our model, because you have leaders doing this, and usually we invest in 2% of the startups that are scouted. So it's very convenient to an angel to go to an investment committee that someone has already analyzed the deal, analyzed the founders, the pitch, etc., and then go there, receive the data room before, go there, watch the pitch, make questions, discuss with the other angels, and then vote. So this is one of the struggles. So where to find and how curated this deal flow can be. And the other thing is like exiting, like we need to have more options of secondary markets, or build these options for the angels, because sometimes it's tough to invest in a startup and then they start fundraising, they go for future rounds, you are getting diluted, and in the end you're not, they have new friends because they have bigger checks, And in the end, we need to have more options and work together to facilitate these options of exiting.
Well, you see a lot of startups out there and a lot of investors. What's your advice for people investing in startups? What do you tell them to do before they write that check?
Ah, good. Yeah, there is one thing that I think that having a thesis it's important. It saves a lot of time when you are scouting, when you are looking for deals. Having a clear thesis for yourself, if you're investing alone, and not only what you like to invest, but also things that you are not investing at all. Not only about the industry or the nature of the business, but also the kinds of founders that you don't wouldn't like to invest in, because it should be a closer relationship, you know? It should be something that someone that you could talk to sometime and not just get your money and, disappear. So I think that evaluating the team is extremely important because the solution that you are invested in, it might change. And if they need to change it, you need to be sure that this team of founders, that this team is able to make the changes that they will need to serve the market. This is what we call a coachable team, you know? So if they are in the early stage, if you find a founder that knows it all and just need money to make it happen because they already know what to do, take a deep breath, think twice, and rethink about it. This is my advice.
Well, great. And then on the other side of that table, what's your advice for founders raising funding? What do you tell them to do before they go out to raise that first round?
Yes. If you're raising your first round, I like to tell founders, and especially when you're talking about angels, it's important that they realize that we know the product will change. We'll know that they are validating a solution, that they are validating a market. So don't try to pretend to be in a stage that you're not yet, okay? So it's important to be honest about the stage you are in, but also to talk about your achievements. Many times I see founders following that pitch deck structure that everybody is following. And many times they are missing important achievements that they already have, and they are not exposing this to the investors. So try to find your way, your pitch, your voice, your story. Each business is different from the other. So try not to follow all the gurus, hints, and the templates and these things, because many times I see founders underselling their projects because of this.
Great. Well, what online information source do you find most helpful?
We like to do a lot of checking, like about a particular startup, you mean?
Or angel investing, startups, what have you?
Okay. Yes, I like to talk to angels. I have many connections and I find many interesting people on LinkedIn that are investing, and sometimes we have like a 30-minute chat and I find a different group or a different person doing something else or a platform, so I get a lot of information about the practice. This is one thing. We also I like to go to some webinars and, there is a public webinar of this network of angels, and I go there because I want to see people who are working on it and really investing. So I like very much this kind of contact, one-to-one or webinars. Well, the traditional and regular courses, like I've done some things in ACA or IBAN in Europe, or I like to read stuff from these sources. And that's it, pretty much.
Great. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here today, what else should we cover that we haven't?
Yes, maybe I could tell a little bit about how we are seeing the movement, like how we are seeing the support, or how professionals can support founders right now. And this is something that it's a movement that we've been seeing, like people who are close to get retired, or they already got retired, or they're thinking about the next step. And it's really amazing to see how they are excited to be involved with founders, with technology, with innovation, and how they can actually contribute to these founders. So what I really experience in COREangels practice, in the meetings, in the several workshops and getting togethers between founders and angels, is that it can be very helpful to you as a founder to count on an angel. And it can be a new role, a new experience, something very innovative to your life. If you're a professional with a good background and you want to invest with a good potential return, always important to mention it's a potential return because we never know. It's a risk asset. But I see that angels, they get a new life because they are playing a different role and contributing to the future leaders.
So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Well, LinkedIn is a good source. I am there, Cintia Mano. I will share my link. Or also COREangels community. We have many webinars going on, public ones that you can just register and participate and get to know us.
Great. We'll include those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hall.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.